Hi, it's Dr. Scott Watson here with a brief video on a second year band student warm-up routine, something that my second year band students can use at the beginning of a home practice session to maximize their practice session by just taking 2 or 3 minutes at the start to warm up properly. I've invited my daughter Abby, who is a general vocal music teacher herself, but she's also a fine flute player. So you'll be seeing me play trumpet, a brass instrument, but you'll also be seeing Abby play woodwind instrument, flute, and you can play along at home. The warm-ups we're going to be doing can be downloaded at drwatsonmusic/download music, and just look for the second year warm-up PDF to download, and you can play along with us too. Anyway, the first warm-up we're going to do is actually going to be long tones. It actually comes from my first year band warm-up sheet, which can also be downloaded at drwatsonmusic/download music. Just look for the first year band warm-up. So I don't have a long tone exercise on my second year warm-up sheet because we do it so much that by second year it's very routine. But we're going to do a warm-up with a long tone first. So if you want to play along, we're doing the first warm-up on the first year band warm-up sheet together. Let's do that long tone first. Okay, 1, 2, 3. And again, the idea is to maintain a clear and steady tone when you do a long tone. You can pick any mid-range note, something in the middle of your register that's not high for you in a strain and not low for you, overly relaxed, but just in the middle of your register. Hold it with a clear, steady tone. That's a great way to start your warm-up. Okay, now we're going to go to the second year sheet and do the first warm-up on the second year warm-up sheet, which is called 5-note review. This is actually very similar to warm-up number 2 from the first year band warm-up in that it's a 5-note scale up and down. What's different is that we're going to emphasize articulation with tonguing of eighth notes. Here is the 5-note review at about quarter note equals 100. If you're using a metronome and wanted to set it to 100, you could do that, or you could just play along with us. I'll count it off. Here we go. Warm-up number 1 on the second year band warm-up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now warm-up number 2 on the second year band warm-up sheet is called moving down, and that's because it moves down to 2 new notes that weren't on the first warm-up, some lower register notes. It is based on the same idea of the 5-note scale up and down. It will use eighth notes. It'll also incorporate some slurs, so be careful that you're articulating the tonguing and slurring correctly as you perform warm-up number 2, moving down. Here we go. It has a repeat sign at the end, so we're going to do it twice. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, hopefully you were paying attention to the key signature for your instrument when you perform that moving down, the end where it goes down to the 2 lower notes, right? So trumpets, hopefully you were playing a B natural, clarinets a B natural, alto saxophones an F sharp, and so on. All right. We're going to move on to warm-up number 3, the fingering challenge. Now, if you're a trombone player, I apologize. You should call this the slide position challenge, but for most instruments who finger to change notes, it's a fingering challenge, and the idea is to get your fingers moving and get you alternating between notes quickly. We're going to use some slurs and tongue, so pay attention to the articulation. Also, I want you to notice that it's based on a 2-note pattern. In other words, what happens in measure 1 and 2 then happen in measure 3 and 4, but at a different scale degree, and then in measure 5 and 6, and so on. So hopefully you're perceiving that there is a pattern to this warm-up, and once you know the pattern, it helps you predict what's coming in the next measures. All right, here is the fingering challenge, warm-up number 3. Hopefully you're playing along, and I'm going to go at about 120, so a little faster, make it more exciting. 1, 2, ready? Yeah. be all you do to warm up one day. If you do a long tone, and then you do exercise number 1, the 5-note review, number 2, the moving down, and number 3, the fingering challenge, that would take about 2 to 3 minutes, and that would be all you need to do, and you could go into your regular practice. We're going to go on and do warm-up number 4 and warm-up number 5 for you. Maybe another day when you practice, you just do a long tone and warm-up number 4 and 5. And then maybe another day you do 3, 4, and 5, or 1, 3, and 5, and so on. Okay, warm-up number 4 is called interval leaps. We're going to be using another 2-measure pattern. Hopefully you'll hear that in the first 2 measures of the exercise. We're going to set up a melodic pattern that then we're going to move to a different scale degree in the next 2 measures, and so on. So again, try to perceive that 2-measure pattern. It's also going to use a different key signature, so we're going to be careful when we get to the second line. There is a note in the second line that will be affected by the different key signature for number 4, so check that out. Anyway, here is interval leaps. We're going to slow it down, actually. This is a little trickier at first if you're doing this for the first time. Maybe about 84 on a metronome. Here we go. 1 and 2, 3 and play. Hope you're doing well. Now we're going to move on to the last warm-up on the sheet. It is a B-flat concert scale. This is basically going from a low note to that same note an octave higher and then back down. That's the scale. We're going by steps. And then it's going to skip every other note more or less, and that's the arpeggio. So it's a scale and an arpeggio. It's called a B-flat concert scale because that's the notes that you would play on your instrument, the notes that are on your version of the warm-up sheet. They're the notes you would play if you wanted to play along with a piano that was playing a B-flat scale. But you'll notice that for your instrument, it may not be. Like if you're a flute or a trombone, it turns out you're playing B-flat to B-flat to B-flat. You're playing a B-flat scale. But if you're playing clarinet or flute or tenor sax, clarinet or trumpet or tenor sax, you're playing C to C to C. So you're playing a C scale. Or if you're playing alto sax or bari sax, you're playing a G to a G to a G. Or a French horn's playing F to F to F. So it's a different scale depending on whether your instrument is in concert pitch or whether it's a transposing instrument. So just use the scale, number 5, that's on your sheet. Go up and down the scale, and then the arpeggio. Also, try to use good phrasing. And what I mean by that is try not to breathe after every note or every couple notes. See if you can play the whole scale ascending on one breath and then come down on one breath, and then maybe do the arpeggio on one breath, so that you're not breathing just so frequently. It'll sound better that way. Okay, so here is the B-flat concert scale and arpeggio, number 5 on the warm-up sheet. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now again, that might be your whole warm-up. Maybe you just did a long tone and warm-up number 4 and 5 and you're all warmed up and you're going to go practice. Have a great practice. However, once you learn a scale like that, just the ascending and descending scale, there's so many things you can do to emphasize other aspects of your playing that you might want to work on. So for instance, we're going to take that same scale and we're going to use a rhythm, 8th, 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 8th quarter. And we're going to do that rhythm on every step of the scale, going up and going down. In fact, we're going to work on just not only that, but also articulation. We're going to do staccato for the 8th notes, da, 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 da. And we're going to do accent, ta, for the quarter note. So it'll be da, 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 and then go up to the next scale degree, da, 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 da. And we'll do that ascending and descending. We're not going to do the arpeggio, just the ascending and descending scale with that rhythm and those articulations. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, and... last thing I'll leave that you can do with this scale is that you can play it in a round. You can play it where one person starts and then a second person comes in at a certain time interval. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the rhythm of the ascending and descending scale to all half notes. So we'll play do, re, mi, fa, so, and on in half notes. So 2 beats per note. Again, only breathe when you need to breathe. Don't breathe after every single half note or it'll sound too choppy. So try to play as many of those half notes as you can in a row on one breath and then breathe as needed. So I'll start, and 2 notes after I come in, right, after da, da, Abby will start at the beginning of the scale, and so she'll be 2 notes behind me. But what's nice about doing the scale like this is we can work on the phrasing I already talked about, not trying to play longer passages of notes without breathing. We're also going to work on intonation. We can tune these intervals. We can hear whether they ring true, do they sound beautiful together, or do they maybe sound a little sour or out of tune. We'll be able to hear that. So since I'll be ending before Abby, what I'll do is when I land on my last note, ascending and then descending scale, when I land on my last note, I'll hold that as a fermata, and I'll wait until Abby joins me, and she'll hold it as a fermata, and then we'll close together. So here's the scale as a round. And if you want to play along, you can come in with either me or with Abby, or you could even wait 2 notes after Abby and play a round with us and be a third entrance. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Okay, hope these warm-ups are helpful to you. Now go practice.